I was halfway through sorting the stack of bills on my desk when my hand froze on a thick ivory envelope. The embossed gold lettering read, Bellamy Gardens, the most expensive wedding venue in town. My pulse quickened. I hadn't inquired about any venue. Why would I? I wasn't the one getting married. Still, curiosity tugged at me. I slid my finger under the flap and unfolded the crisp contract inside. The elegant letterhead glimmered in the morning light streaming across my apartment. My eyes skimmed the page until they landed on a figure that made my stomach drop, $76,000. And below it, my signature. Except it wasn't mine. The loops were too round, the slant too sharp. A good imitation, maybe, but I'd know my handwriting. Anywhere. And more importantly, I recognized the hand that had forged it. My sister Destiny. The little curls she added at the end of every letter betrayed her. A cold rush of disbelief swept through me, numbing my fingers. The coffee cup slipped from my grasp and shattered across the hardwood floor, dark liquid splashing against my bare feet. I barely felt the sting. All I could see was that contract. Destiny had signed my name for $76,000. This can't be happening, I whispered to the empty room, clutching the paper so tightly it wrinkled under my grip, but it was happening. And if I didn't act fast, my life was about to unravel. It's funny how life changes once you finally stop living for everyone else. For so long, I believed my worth was measured by what I gave, money, time, sacrifice. But the truth I've discovered is simpler. Worth isn't proven, it's inherent. And no contract, fake or real, can change that. One quiet evening, I found myself sitting at a cafe downtown. The same kind of place Destiny would have mocked as boring. I had a notebook open, scribbling down ideas for my next project. At work. The hum of conversation, the clinking of cups, the smell of roasted coffee, it all felt like music. Across from me, a young woman was arguing with her phone. Her words drifted over. I can't just pay for your mistakes again. I'm not your bank account. Her voice cracked with the weight of a story that sounded far too familiar. Our eyes met for the briefest second. She gave me a tight, embarrassed smile, and I offered her one back. In that moment, I realized something. I wasn't alone. How many? Others had been trapped the way I was, taught that love meant debt, that loyalty meant sacrifice, that saying no meant betrayal. If sharing my story could save even one person from being swallowed whole by manipulation, then maybe everything I had endured hadn't been for nothing. Later that night, I opened my laptop and began writing. Not for them. Never again for them. But for me, and for anyone who might need the reminder that family doesn't give them the right to destroy you. The words flowed like water, raw and unfiltered. Each sentence was a small release, each paragraph another chain breaking loose. I don't know where that writing will lead. Maybe it'll just stay tucked away in my private journal. Maybe one day it'll find its way into the world. But either way, it was mine. My truth, my freedom. And as I closed the laptop and leaned back, I felt lighter than I had in years. They had called me ungrateful. But gratitude isn't about bowing to chains. Gratitude is about honoring the life you build for yourself, the peace you fight, for the boundaries you keep. Today, I am grateful, not for them, but for the strength I found when I finally said no. Because no was not the end of my story. It was the beginning. I sank onto the couch, the contract trembling in my hands. The number glared back at me like a neon sign, impossible to ignore. $76,000. In my name. How long had they been planning this? I rifled through the packet, each page worse than the last. Deposit schedules, catering menus, cancellation penalties. Every clause pointed to one person responsible for payment. Me. My chest tightened, and the walls seemed to close in. This wasn't just a mistake. This was deliberate. I'd spent years cleaning up after my family's messes, but never on this scale. Credit cards maxed out in emergencies, car loans mysteriously shifted into my name, utilities left unpaid when they moved out of houses. And every time, I'd been the one to quietly fix it. Because you're the responsible one, my mother always said, as if responsibility were a curse carved into my skin. Destiny, meanwhile, floated through life like some untouchable princess. Failed. College classes? I covered the tuition, broken lease after a fight with a roommate. I co-signed the new apartment. She always knew someone would catch her when she fell, and that someone was me. But this wasn't a fall. This was a shove. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A family group chat notification. Destiny's message lit the screen. Just confirmed with the venue. It's happening. I stared at it, bile rising in my throat. She was celebrating. She had no doubt I'd roll over, sign the checks, sacrifice my future for her perfect wedding. My fingers tightened around the contract until the paper crumpled. A hot sting of anger cut through the fear. For the first time, I wasn't just scared. I was furious. And somewhere beneath the rage, a single thought flickered like a spark in dry grass. What if I didn't go along with it this time? That evening, I drove to my parents' house with the contract folded tightly in my bag. I needed answers, though part of me already knew what I would find. The moment I stepped inside, Destiny was twirling in the living room, a veil pinned sloppily into her hair. My mother clapped like a child at a recital, while my father scrolled through his phone, nodding absently. "There she is," Mom sang out. "Our savior. Did you see the venue? Isn't it perfect for your sister's big day?" I pulled the contract from my bag and laid it on the coffee table. "Why does it have my name on it?" Silence blanketed the room. Destiny's smile faltered for a second, then returned, sugary sweet. "Oh, don't be dramatic. We just knew you'd want to help. Family takes care of family." My chest burned. "Help? This is $76,000. You forged my signature." Dad finally looked up, his expression hard. "Watch your tone. Your sister deserves a proper wedding. You can afford it. You've always been the successful one." There it was. The refrain I'd heard my entire life. Because I had worked hard, saved carefully, kept my bills paid on time, I was now the designated wallet. I shook my head. "I never agreed to this. I won't pay." Destiny gasped as though I'd slapped her. "Ungrateful. After everything I've done for you, what you've done for me." My laugh was sharp, bitter. "All you've ever done is take." Her eyes glistened, lips trembling in a performance worthy of an Oscar. "You're ruining the happiest day of my life." And my mother, right on cue, clutched her chest. "Do you want your sister's marriage to start in shame? People will talk." Guilt twisted in my stomach like a knife. I could feel the familiar trap closing. Duty, appearances, the endless cycle of sacrifice. But this time, the trap didn't snap shut. This time, I pushed back. My words hung in the air, heavy and final. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then my father's face darkened, the way storm clouds swallow the sky. "Do you hear yourself?" he growled. "This family is bent over backward for you, and now you won't do one thing for your sister?" I almost laughed. Bent over backward? Memories rushed in. Me picking up rent after Dad forgot to pay. Me wiring money when Mom's credit cards were maxed. Me taking Destiny's debt collector's calls. The only one bending had always been me. "This isn't about helping," I said quietly. "It's about using me. And I'm done." Destiny stomped her foot like a child denied candy. "You're jealous. Admit it. You don't want me to be happy because you've never had what I have." I stared at her, at the glittering engagement ring, at the smug tilt of her chin. "Once, I might have envied her easy life. Now all I saw was a parasite dressed in silk. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I've never had what you have, because I earned everything I own. You've had it handed to you, but not anymore." Her mouth fell open. Mom reached. For me, her eyes glassy with manufactured tears. "Sweetheart, please. Think of the family's reputation. Do you want everyone whispering that we couldn't give Destiny the wedding she deserves?" The old me, the one conditioned to absorb every burden, wavered. That familiar guilt stirred, threatening to drag me back under. But then I thought of my own life, the apartment I worked years to afford, the savings account I had painstakingly built, the quiet dreams I'd shelved to bankroll their chaos. Something inside me snapped. Or maybe it healed. "No," I said, sharper this time. "I won't pay. Not now, not ever. If Destiny wants a fairy tale wedding, she can figure it out herself. My name comes off this contract or I'll report it as fraud." A stunned silence followed. For once, they didn't have a script ready. I gathered the crumpled papers, slid them back into my bag, and stood tall. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in years, it wasn't fear. It was freedom beginning to bloom. The drive home felt like I was moving through fog. My hands clutched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached, but my mind spun even faster than the tires on the road. Their voices echoed in my head, ungrateful, jealous. Family takes care of family. They had spent years planting those words in me like weeds, letting them choke every boundary I tried to set. Tonight, for the first time, I had ripped some of them out by the roots. But the ground still felt unsteady. As soon as I walked through my apartment door, my phone lit up like a slot machine. 27 unread messages. "Mom, we'll talk tomorrow when you've calmed down." "Dad, you embarrassed us. This is your responsibility." "Destiny, hope you're happy. You're destroying my wedding." I tossed the phone onto the couch. My hands trembled, not with fear this time, but with fury. They thought this was over, that a night's sleep would soften me, that I'd wake up obedient again. Not this time. I pulled the contract back out and spread it across my kitchen table, smoothing the wrinkled pages flat. My eyes caught on the words, "legally binding." The weight of it pressed on me. If I didn't act, I could actually be held responsible for $76,000 I never agreed to spend. Destiny had signed my name, and the venue believed it. That realization snapped my panic into focus. This wasn't just a family issue. This was fraud. The next morning, instead of heading to work, I drove downtown to a lawyer's office. My palms were slick as I slid the contract across his desk. He adjusted his glasses, scanned the signature, and gave a low whistle. "Clear forgery," he said. "You'd win this easily if they tried to hold you liable, especially if you report it now." Relief spread through me like warm sunlight, but he wasn't finished. "Be warned. Once you take legal action, this won't just be a family squabble anymore. It'll get ugly." I nodded. "It's already ugly." Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't in years: control. For once, I wasn't scrambling to fix their mistakes in secret. I was preparing to protect myself. That night, I drafted an email to Bellamy Gardens, attaching a copy of my driver's license and a statement denying the signature. My finger hovered over the send button, heart hammering. This was the point of no return. In the end, it wasn't even a choice. I pressed send, and just like that, the script changed. For the first time, I wasn't the family's safety net. I was the storm about to unravel everything they'd built on my back. The fallout came faster than I expected. By noon the next day, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls stacked on top of each other, voicemails piling up like rubble after an earthquake. I ignored them all until finally one came through from an unknown number. "Against my better judgment," I answered. "How dare you?" Destiny's shrill voice nearly burst my eardrum. "You emailed the venue?" They called me in tears this morning. They said the contract is invalid, that the deposit is frozen. Do you have any idea what you've done? I held the phone away from my ear, letting her tantrum echo in the air like static. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm. What I've done is stop you from committing fraud in my name. You forged my signature. Destiny. That's a crime, she laughed bitterly. Oh, please, it's family. Families don't sue each other. You're being vindictive. Just admit you can't stand to see me happy. The line clicked dead before I could respond. Not 30 minutes later, Mom was at my apartment door. She didn't knock. She banged like she owned the place. I opened it only enough to block her entry with my body. You've gone too far this time, she hissed. Do you realize what people will say if this wedding is ruined? Everyone already knows you make more money than the rest of us, and now you're refusing to help your own sister. The old guilt tried to claw its way back in, but then I remembered the lawyer's words, clear forgery. I straightened my shoulders. I'm not refusing to help, Mom. I'm refusing to be scammed. Destiny committed fraud. If the wedding is ruined, that's on her, not me. Her eyes flashed, sharp and cold. For the first time, I saw past the crocodile tears to the steel underneath, the calculation. You'll regret this, she said. Family is everything, and when you have none left, you'll understand what you've thrown away. She spun on her heel and stormed down the hallway, leaving a silence so thick it pressed against my chest. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it. My hands were trembling again, but not from fear. From release. From the knowledge that their threats no longer held power over me. That night, I sat at my desk and began documenting everything, every text, every voicemail, every call. My lawyer had advised me to keep a record, and I wasn't about to let a single word slip through the cracks. For once, I wasn't reacting. I was preparing. The messages kept coming. Destiny calling me heartless, Dad telling me I'd be cut off. From the family. Cousins chiming in to say I was selfish. But their words slid off me like rain on glass. They wanted me broken, guilt-ridden, crawling back into the role of savior. Instead, I was building my own escape. And deep down, I knew. The storm had only just begun. The next weekend should have been filled with final fittings, cake tastings, and joyful chaos for Destiny. Instead, it turned into a circus of desperation. I woke up Saturday morning to find 3 family members waiting in the parking lot of my apartment complex. My cousin, my aunt, and, of course, my father. They cornered me before I could even reach my car. Do you think you're better than us now? Dad's voice was gravelly, low but dangerous. Running to lawyers? Threatening your own blood? You've embarrassed this family enough. I crossed my arms, heart pounding, but forced my tone to stay even. You embarrassed yourselves when you forged my name. I'm not paying for a $76,000 wedding. End of story. My cousin piped up, eyes darting between us nervously. Come on, it's just money. Destiny deserves her big day. You've always been the lucky one. Share it. Lucky, I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I worked for every dime I have, while Destiny spent hers on designer bags. And spa weekends, I was saving, hustling, sacrificing. If you call that luck, then maybe you should try it sometime. Dad's jaw tightened. If you walk away from this family, don't bother coming back. No holidays, no birthdays, nothing. There it was, the ultimate weapon. Exile. The one thing they believed I couldn't live without. But standing there, sunlight breaking over the parking lot, I felt the truth settle deep in my chest. I wasn't losing a family. I was finally freeing myself from a cage I'd been locked in since childhood. Then I guess this is goodbye, I said softly. My father's eyes widened in shock, as though he'd expected me to crumble. Instead, I stepped past them, unlocking. My car with steady hands. My heart thundered, but it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline, strength. The next week was a blur of escalation. Destiny plastered rants about me all over social media. How I'd betrayed her, how I was jealous of her happiness. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly flooded my inbox, demanding explanations, hurling insults. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on the paper trail, emails from the venue confirming the contract was void, records from my lawyer proving the signature was fraudulent. One night, my phone buzzed with a final voicemail from Destiny. Her voice cracked with fake tears. "You've ruined me. The wedding's off. Everyone's talking about how pathetic I am. I hope you're proud of yourself." I listened once, then deleted it. For years, her voice had been my leash, jerking me back into line whenever I tried to step forward. Now it was just background noise. The silence that followed was different this time. Not heavy with guilt, but light with possibility. For the first time, my future felt like it belonged to me. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and let the night air wash over me. The city buzzed below, alive and indifferent, and I realized I was finally free to live my life without their chains. They had tried to brand me ungrateful, selfish, cruel, but all I had done was draw a line and stand behind it. And standing there, I felt taller than I ever had before. The storm had raged, but I was still standing, and I wasn't going back. Weeks passed, and the silence from my family grew louder than any of their shouting ever had. At first, it felt strange. No guilt-ridden phone calls at midnight, no dramatic texts demanding money, no last-minute rescues I was expected to perform. Just quiet. And in that quiet, something bloomed I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Used to believe family was unshakable, that blood meant loyalty, that love meant sacrifice, even if it drained me dry. But watching them turn on me the moment I refused to be their wallet had burned those illusions away. One afternoon, while sorting through paperwork, I came across an old photo. It was from my college graduation. I was smiling in my cap and gown, diploma in hand. My family was around me, but their faces weren't turned toward me. They were turned toward each other, already planning what they could use me for. I stared at that photo for a long time before sliding it into a drawer. That chapter of my life was closed. Instead, I began building something new. I booked a solo trip for the first time in my life. Paris, a city I had dreamed of visiting but always put off because someone in the family needed me more. I walked. The cobblestone streets with no one's demands weighing me down, ate croissants in cafes without a phone buzzing in my ear, and stood at the top of the Eiffel Tower with tears streaming down my face. Not from sadness, but from freedom. When I returned home, opportunities seemed to open everywhere. I poured more energy into my career, into friendships I had neglected, into hobbies I once loved but abandoned for their crises. My apartment, once just a pit stop between family emergencies, became a home filled with laughter, music, and light. Of course, they tried to claw back. A few distant relatives reached out weeks later, testing the waters with sugar-coated words. Family shouldn't fight. Destiny misses you. Can't you just let it go? But I had already let go of them. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured my focus into those who gave as much as they took, into people who valued me for more than what I could provide. Friends became my chosen family. And in their company, I realized something profound. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about care that flows both ways. One night, sitting on my balcony again with a glass of wine, I reflected on everything, the contract, the manipulation, the threats. It had nearly broken me, but it had also forced me to break free. They called me ungrateful. But I wasn't ungrateful. I was liberated, and while they were still tangled in lies, debts, and illusions, I was stepping into a life that finally felt like mine. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next crisis. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying everyone else's weight. For the first time in years, I could breathe, and I wasn't going back. Months turned into a year, and slowly, the raw sting of betrayal dulled into something else. Clarity. At first, I kept expecting them to reappear. A dramatic apology at my door, a sudden call in the middle of the night, maybe even a letter admitting they had gone too far. But it never came. The only things that reached me were half-hearted messages from relatives trying to patch the family's image. You know destiny didn't mean it. Families make mistakes. Stop being so stubborn, and everything can go back to normal. But I didn't want normal. Normal was being drained dry to fund other people's dreams. Normal was being praised only when I sacrificed myself. Normal was being invisible unless my bank account was involved. No, I had outgrown their definition of family. My new normal looked different. It looked like waking up on a Sunday morning to sunlight streaming through my windows instead of to frantic voicemails. It looked like brunch with friends who laughed with me, not at me. It looked like weekends spent on hiking trails, trips abroad, art classes I'd always wanted to take. It looked like freedom. Sometimes, though, the shadows of the past crept in. On birthdays or holidays, I would catch myself waiting for a call. That never came. I would remember childhood Thanksgivings, when we'd all gather around the table, laughter hiding the cracks already forming beneath. Nostalgia is tricky. It can make poison taste sweet if you let it. But then I'd remember the contract, the threats, the way my mother's eyes turned cold when I dared to stand up for myself, and the illusion shattered all over again. That memory became my anchor, a reminder that peace is sometimes bought at the cost of distance. One day, while cleaning out my storage closet, I found an old box of keepsakes, school awards, letters, faded photographs. Buried among them was a card destiny had written me years ago. To the best sister ever, it read in glittering ink. Thank you for always taking care of me. I stared at those words for a long moment. Then I realized she had never been thanking me. She had been grooming me. Every thank you was another thread in the web that kept me tied to her. Gratitude as a weapon. I set the card back in the box, closed the lid, and carried it to the dumpster. It was time to stop carrying the weight of people who never truly saw me. In their absence, I discovered something powerful. Self-respect. I had, thought cutting ties would leave me empty. Instead, it left me room to grow. My career flourished when I wasn't pouring my energy into fixing their mistakes. I built new friendships rooted in mutual care. I even started dating again with standards I never would have dared to set back when I was desperate for scraps of affection. Every step forward felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I didn't even know I had lost. And slowly, I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come, because I didn't need it. Closure doesn't come from them. It comes from choosing yourself, even when the world calls you ungrateful for it. The night I signed the lease on my dream condo, a place I could finally call home without anyone else's fingerprints on it, I poured a glass of champagne, stood on the balcony, and looked out at the glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, destiny was probably still spinning her stories, painting me as the villain. Maybe the rest of the family still believed her. Maybe they always would. But for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I wasn't their savior anymore. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I was free. And freedom, I realized, was worth far more than $76,000. It was priceless.